kick it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Ash, Hubert and Kevin podcast, where we help business owners and finance pros understand their numbers and make better decisions for their businesses. This week we've got Hubert back.
It's good to be back.
Welcome back, Hubert. We are chartered accountants, all of us. Some of us have more initials in our designations. Ash, tell us about yourself and why we should listen to you during this episode.
Well, yeah, the chartered accountant's already been told, but I also hold an MBA and a GAICD. I spent the last decade working through listed companies, driving continuous improvement and data-driven decision making. So,
Nice. Hubert, you're also a chartered accountant. You've
Yes.
got a master's in something.
Yeah, so I finished my master in finance. I guess my working career, half of it has been as auditor, other half's been with a corporate accountant. And I guess especially in the accounting side of stuff, done a lot of bit of implementation of new software and processes, and sort of my skill set there.
Nice. And I've worked with these two fellas in various roles before. Also a CA, finance leader, worked across many teams in business functions. And so, hoping that through our expertise and experience, we'll be able to share a few things to help you guys as you navigate your businesses or your finance teams. But Hubert, welcome back. Where you been hiding, mate?
Yeah, it's been a crazy few months. Introduced, and I got my second child came around 4 months ago. Yeah, so it's been a bit of a wild journey last few months.
Always toughest on the dads, isn't it?
Oh, mate, really hard. No, it's been good fun. I think it's more, I guess I didn't have too much to do with her, but it's more taking care of the son. He sort of felt a bit left out at times, so I had to make sure I stepped up there and made sure he felt it was still still loved, part of the family. So a lot of my hands on with him. But it's been good fun with her as well. She's an amazing kid. Had good fun and sort of slowly getting into a routine now, so you'll be able to come back and do these sort of stuff again.
That's good. How do month ends go with two kids? Or do you still come home late? Do you still, or do you say, stuff it, I've got two kids at home?
Nah, it's tough. You still got to, you got a job to do. So few late nights, it does hurt, but the wife's understanding. She takes care of the kids really good. I guess those late nights, it does. I guess my son feels it. He sort of wants to stay up and talk to me and stuff. So, but no, it's been good. I think just get back into routine now. It's getting a bit easier, but good fun.
You've been missed, mate. We've left that chair empty on purpose. We left your jersey on it. We tied the number 4 jersey off the podcast. Ash, what's been happening, mate? Last time we were here, I think we were going to go to a conference.
Indeed.
We ended up going to this CFO Symposium conference, which was actually pretty surprisingly good. I haven't been to an accounting conference in a bit because 2 years ago I told myself I'm not going to be an accountant and stopped going to these. But now I am again. So here we are. It was actually really good. I got a lot out of it, not just from an accounting lens, but also a business lens.
Yeah.
How did you find it?
Yeah, I found it pretty interesting. The key takeaways I sort of had was, the CFO and CTO, which is your Chief Technical Officer, or your Chief Information Officer, those two roles blending, and a real drive to sort of blend finance and systems and data together now. It's not just finance sticking your own lane, but it's also going, hey, look, you guys are the enablers as well, so get on board and, help that journey. So for me, that was sort of a shock, and then that sort of shock went back to reality, and I was like, actually, that's already happening at the current place, my current workplace. That role's already been blended. So I was like, actually, it's happening sooner than I thought. So
Yeah.
How about yourself?
Mate, I've got a big list. I don't know where to start. I think a good place to start, and maybe we can go through this topic by topic. The first thing is AI is always, like, we all expected you go in, everyone's going to get up and talk about something AI. But I think a big takeaway was how finance teams and businesses set up. Like, I can't remember who spoke about it, but it was one of those fireside chats, and one of the CFOs was saying, actually, in our business, we're still adopting automation. like automation was a thing 4 years ago. Everyone was talking about, but we're still adopting automation. We've done that first in our FP&A function because that's where we feel like we'll get the most value. That's where we also see us adopting AI first. Actually, I've got a note there. It was at Unilever and the manufacturing company as well. And that's where they see automation AI playing more of a space than all of this other process parts in finance. So what do you guys think of that? And do you see automation firstly being adopted anywhere else?
So I got a question around that. So automation. So you're talking about like a lot of finance business cycles. Getting a bit more, take the manual tasks out of it, right? So it's one thing I'm struggling with. What my place is like, everyone wants to be, things easier, automated, but it requires a bit of skill set. It requires a bit of time. Do these guys, when they talk about, are they talking about getting third parties coming in and doing this, or they got a team that does it internally?
I think so. I follow a team at BlueScope. They've got like an internal automation. I don't know what they call it, but they've got like a center of excellence of automation across their business. This is actually something we were trying to do as well. We had the concepts of this at Hudson, and the guy in my team who was working with this now goes and does this for other companies. But the new stack of tools, I think 5 years ago, the stack of tools was you had to get a third party to come and implement it for you and walk away because things were just too complex. The new stack of tools, particularly with Microsoft, is you can have a third party and come and set it up for you. But the best way for you to utilize is to train people within your teams to be able to use it, tinker with it, and then build on top of that. So I think that's the wave of automation that these guys were saying is still not really adopted well in finance teams, which is true. Like I haven't been in a finance team yet where we were talking about, let's go do all these, let's go build all this stuff to make our lives easier. We're always still talking about, let's go get new tools or pay for these new subscriptions or hire another person.
So it's absolutely. If you think about it, like Copilot, ChatGPT, these things didn't exist, right? Like that many years ago. So now it's about just incrementally building. But now it's just like, I think you have to really go back to the foundations, right? Like, what are you trying to improve? So if you're just trying to improve a balance sheet rec, there's no point in getting this, amazing engine like ChatGPT to come back and say, hey, give me more insights and commentary and make this autonomous when you're just after something flashier, like, with just better wording. So it just depends on what you're after. When you say automated, you're talking about AI automated, you're just talking about RPA, like
just processes,
Yeah,
simple basic automation. I think there's an AI lens that can happen on top of that once it's all set up, but AI is just like this sexy word that gets thrown in there when there's no point putting AI on something that's actually a really terrible process.
That's right.
With terrible data. Like you can even do it in ChatGPT. You give ChatGPT crap data, it's going to give you a crap response.
Yeah.
So that's,
so you said FP&A?
Yeah.
I think month-end close, like I think generally for a lot of that part, if everything's hit the right numbers as you're expecting, like that process should be an RPA process.
Yeah.
Just hit a button, automatically closes all the stuff and moves on. So, Your thoughts?
So another question around that. So, you mentioned Copilot, Microsoft, that's the new software they brought out. It's something that, it does look quite interesting. Like, so I guess there's a bit of AI sort of, platform. Like, I know the people on my team, they want to try bringing that into our work practices. But sort of like, no one's there to train us, no one's there to, no one knows about it. Do they talk about, how, what's sort of the best way to bring that into your business, I guess? Like, how do you train someone? Do you have to go to some sort of external training, or do you bring someone in, or just got to learn watch YouTube? I don't know. What is it?
I've got a data scientist in my team. I've got technically two, but one that I work with heavily. He just did some courses, right?
There's already courses now.
Free courses from Microsoft.
Okay.
There's YouTube materials. There's all that sort of stuff. Like, I suppose your logic reasoning has to be normal. When I say normal, be able to input basic parameters and like what you're trying to solve, because AI can't solve that for you. You have to tell it its problem and what you're trying to fix, and then you can sort of work your way through that. But effectively, you can start pretty quickly. And depending on what you're after, you'll try some things will work and some things won't, and then you'll sort of adjust your formula as you need to. So, is your team on ChatGPT at this stage?
I guess we use that. It's like the free version, right?
Yeah.
You still got that version. So I guess it's more. I mean, I guess there is legit example of my business and sort of wanting that experience. I guess people out there want the same thing as well. Like they want to bring it into the workplace. What's the best way of approaching that? I guess, yeah. And I guess I want to know as well. So if you guys know or you learned something from this forum, or
I think so. Where my personal thoughts on like how people use AI, I reckon it has to be personally adopted first before it's used by corporations and teams. There's no point pushing this on teams or people that don't even use this stuff day to day. So like for me personally, I solve personal problems with ChatGPT as an example, which makes me think then for any team problems that I have. So if we're having a 30% error rate on AP invoicing, then it makes me think, okay, how do I solve this? I'm not thinking AI straight away. I'm thinking, how do I minimize these errors? Copilot could be something that I use because we're using it already as a part of our Microsoft license. But instead of thinking, I think for me, let's adopt AI, it's what problems do we have in our teams of businesses that we want to try and solve first? And can automation AI or something else, just cleaning up the process, can that solve that?
So the conference actually, there's a bloke from OFX who had a good point. He's like, I've just got it here. So AI as your Iron Man suit. So Iron Man just by himself, just a bloke puts on his suit, gets superpowers, right? So, but it is that suit and how you then use that suit, right? So if you have the suit just sitting in your wardrobe, it's not gonna add value. So I suppose it's both together. I think it's just trying it with one thing that you want as a guinea pig, seeing how you go, and if you like it, maybe like carry on with it. If not, there's heaps of tools, right? Like Copilot is one tool, ChatGPT is another tool. There's heaps, right? Like there's heaps, and you'll figure out one that actually suits your own needs for it. So yeah, just depending. Like if you're solving personal problems, like if you just chucking in random bits of data, going, can you interpret this? If you're trying to say word this resume better, you can do anything, right? And based on that output, then you can even come back and say, I don't like that output. Go ahead and change it if it's just wordy, right? You can even say, go give me the accounting journal for this particular transaction. It's definitely got some thought, but you need to be that expert to come back and say, is that right or not? Because it does hallucinate, right? That's the term. So if you don't know what you're talking about, you may end up, just writing some complete garbage, right? Like, and that's where that technical skill set does come in.
And uses it as a sounding board. So what I did, like the best thing, this is what I was showing my team as well at year end, because we sold a business. There's all these journals we had to do, right? Clear all this stuff out. I'm like, man, I don't want to sit here for 2 hours and work out what I need to do. So I uploaded my chart of accounts to ChatGPT. I knew exactly what I wanted in terms, not debits and credits, but I knew the treatments of things I needed to do. Take out my intangibles. I need to sell these fleet. So I gave it a list of like 20 things I needed to do. And I said, give me a list of journals that I need to put in debits and credits, including your reasoning behind it. And it spat out some stuff for me. For me, that was like, all right, now that's my first template. And I can actually now go and start to challenge these things and create the journals for myself. So I didn't copy and paste it directly, but it did the hard work for me. I didn't have to go searching for the accounts that I had to do. And like, that's what I was trying to tell my team is if you can't use stuff like this to solve your personal problems as even a sounding board, there's no point going and doing a course on AI because you're not seeing the value of it in your own personal work yet.
Yeah, I suppose it's like how many people actually did an Excel course back in the day. Like for me, I never did it, right? Like what I learned was on the job. And because I had so many like data problems and this and that, like I had to learn additional new things, but it's just me going, oh, this is my current problem. How do I solve it? So as a result, like my skill set increased rapidly.
Yeah.
But then when I looked at my counterparts, like they hadn't solved those, like they hadn't faced those problems. And as a result, then they were just way behind, right? So I suppose it's like what you're trying to do. And then try one thing. Then I suppose if you got that curious mindset, you'll keep going with it. So you'll keep pushing the agenda with it.
If we keep jumping on, so one of the things on the modern CFO, they said CFO's top priority is talent, data and insights, risk management, and finance process transformation. Does any of that come as a surprise to you guys?
No, that's
standard. Talent for me is interesting because now it goes hierarchical, then it goes flat off, then it goes hierarchical again. So it's like, and they're expecting more, right? So
on talent, they were saying 58,000 job shortage this year. 1 in 3 accounting roles will remain unfilled, which is actually pretty surprising.
Wait, is this in Australia or in New South Wales?
In Australia, I think this is.
So we're short on accountants.
Yeah.
Supply and demand. Boom.
Yeah.
Come back around 360.
But that's actually really surprising, right?
No, but I think because companies like if you have a head count, the challenge now is like with a lot of listed companies, they want to go offshore. They don't want to go AI like RPA or AI. They want to go offshore because it's cheap.
Yeah.
So now you're dealing with that battle. So I think as a, you know, how much does an accountant cost you offshore? 30 grand.
Yeah.
Versus what?
A trained accountant trained on your Australian systems, WASB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
30
cost you
to
half
40.
yeah.
30 to 40,000 versus what 120 sort of thing. So like you're saving, you know, a third, right? So that's your real challenge now. Which way do you go?
Yeah.
So did they talk about that about whether offshoring talent or?
They didn't really touch on offshoring, did they?
No, they're more about. I suppose this lot was about how do you get your finance processes in like down pat to get AI to start helping you.
Okay.
So that was their.
So their direction is more get AI into
100%.
supplement the team, I guess.
Yeah, get AI, but also fix up your like systems and processes.
Okay.
Like So that's like if you want to grow and scale your business, I think that is the right way. Like get your systems processes down pat. Think about AI and how you incorporate that. If you just go the traditional route of doing the same thing but for cheaper, you actually haven't done anything better. You haven't scaled your process. You've just made that more optimal, like from a cost point of view. That's my perspective.
Yeah.
So what are the other points they're looking for? So you said talent.
Talent, data and insights.
Data insight, yep.
Risk management, just controls and stuff. And finance process transformation.
So I guess the last two are pretty much like traditional accountant sort of skills.
Yeah.
Data's sort of a newish one. Yeah, like, you know, to be able to data, you know, and I think that's just like, we talk about our work as well. Like that's sort of the new sort of skill. That's a mix of IT and finance where it is sort of becoming in demand because data is, you know, is worth a lot of money to a lot of companies, and you be able to mine that, translate it. That's where a lot of business want. You know, the people there. So that's a good industry to be in right now.
Yeah, I think.
Go
sorry, you go. You're the expert on this.
No, I was going to say it's the joining of the other bits of data. So where finance struggle is they stick in their own silos and they don't join like the operational data with the finance data. It's, you have two distinct conversations when you're sitting there in that room. You're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense from an operational point of view, but I'm not seeing this in your P&L. But they never join those two conversations up. And when they do, the finance commentary is horrendous, right? Like it's beyond me. But that's a real challenge. But now you got like specialized roles where you've got the ability to join up systems and come back and say, well, that looks weird, or this is caused by this demand, or this is actually seasonal, or this is not seasonal, and this is why everything's increased. You've got that layer of insight at now a click of your fingertips. That's power, I think, because now you can make business decisions based on that data, not just anecdotal stuff that some salesperson's chatting to you about. Because currently that's how a lot of businesses I've seen are run. They're like, oh no, this happened because of this. And you're like, okay, I'll take that at face value because I've got no way to test that or prove that. I'll just take your word for it because everyone keeps saying the data's wrong. Now we come back and say the data's not wrong. Yeah. Stop telling me made up stories, right? So the processes part needs to happen, right? I think some of it's properly wacky. But yeah, like, yeah, what's your take on the like any surprises to you, or were you expecting all those categories?
I think, I mean, risk management always throws me off because I forget sometimes that's our role. So like, you know, well, I just think if you have the right systems in play, obviously there's a role for a CFO to manage risk in terms of cash and controls and things like that. But I feel like there's all this other stuff that's in there that we obviously glamorize. I'm trying to think of the quote. Someone told me this 3 years ago. Something about value. That's it. CFOs, our role is to be value protectors and value creators. And yeah, sometimes we forget, I think, the whole value protection part, particularly with all the sexy stuff, right? Automation, AI. We forget that there's also this whole other lens that we need to be. And that's what we were just talking off thing before. Hubert was talking about accountants being the bad guys. But the truth is our roles are also to protect the value of the business through that. So it's not as popular, but important.
I suppose your risk awareness is like a lot higher than most, right? So you'll understand some things before other people have even joined those dots, right? So yeah, like, hey, let's swipe my credit card to buy this. You'd be like, hey, take your time, think about it. Let's revisit this conversation when you've had a few more coffees or whatever it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just that, because I think like naturally you come back and be like, that doesn't add up, right? Like, yeah, so
And you also balance, I think, the rest of the executive team out, because your CEO is meant to be pro risk. Naturally, they're the ones setting strategy. They're the ones, doing all this, I guess, the risky things to elevate the business. Your CTO is kind of building and holding those systems together. Someone's got to kind of rein it all back sometimes. And, ultimately at the end of the day, protecting your financial statements from not being misstated and representing your business accurately, but also creating stakeholder confidence up. If you have a board or if you're ASX listed or whatever, you don't want to be, you're the one on the chopping block ultimately for all of it. And finally, I got a lot of value out of that last session, Ash, where Andrew Jepson, the finance business partner,
liked him.
Couple of things. So he was talking about when you set up presentation decks and you talk to them, he was saying only 4% of people can read and listen at the same time. So he's like, if you have really detailed decks and you're talking to it, no one's listening to you, or no one's reading what's on there, because people can only do one thing at the same time. So I think that was really good. And I think, again, we were talking off air before around how traditionally a finance deck has all this written commentary and graphs for days that, can bore people. And it's almost like a record of minutes rather than an actual deck to talk to.
Yeah. And he's like, for the audience, his PowerPoints were simple, right? But just really engaging. Like when he was talking, like there wasn't a whole heap of words on the page.
Yeah.
Like with everyone else, they've got like in their marketing material.
Yeah.
Just very like, the points simple, and he talked to them and he moved on. Those points were very, very clear.
It was almost too simple. Like this first 2 minutes, I was like, mate, surely you could have put in more effort with these slides. It's like he copied from Google Images on a white deck. But then it like made sense. Ultimately, he was telling.
Yeah. No, it's so simple that it worked. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when someone's like thought about it so much that their final product is this really simple thing.
Yeah.
But like, the talking points, everything else, it just flowed. I think I thought so well compared to like, oh yeah, I've got 50,000 words on a page. I want to read every single thing to you. I want to like just go a million miles an hour. I didn't really understand what you're saying. And then you're trying to like, as an audience member, because you're not understanding what they're saying, you're trying to read, they're talking, you've missed like most of that. I think that's definitely valid. He did bring up a good point about, I think it was Google, the CEO.
Sundar
He doesn't want any words on a PowerPoint, apparently. He just wants pictures. So yeah, think about that. Like, how cool is that?
But I guess it also comes down to your audience, right? Like, yeah, in the business world, I agree. Like, there shouldn't be too much on the slide. Let's say I go back to my uni days where the slides were your source of, that's what you were, you have to start. That's where your course was, right? You want to make sure they had all the notes on there, in detail, because you're not going to rely on what you heard, 10 weeks ago in a lecture course. You want to know, okay, can I read this before the exam, and all the data's in there. So there you want all the notes in the PowerPoint, right? Where I guess in a business meeting, yeah, I agree. Like once you put dump words and dump, whole lot of data on the screen, I'm out. So so that's, I think you're right. Should be simple and just speak to it.
Yeah.
And
the final thing I loved, the rule of 3. So he says, write down everything you want to talk about, pick the best 3, and leave everything else for question time. So if you're doing commentary at month end, pick your 3 best points and leave everything else for the question time. Because he's like, if you just put everything in there, sometimes people are digging into the stuff that don't really matter and ask you questions on that, but you don't have the answers to. Focus on the 3 biggest things. If it's, board pack, if it's month-end commentary, if it's, stakeholder update, whatever it is. Rule of 3, and it's all about repetition. And he had a couple of good examples there as well.
That's good. Yeah, I like him. Really, really good.
So I guess overall, you reckon this is something worth, would you do it again, or recommend this to other people?
Well, it was free, so that was good.
Yeah.
And I think, some of these talks that were given were by sponsors. So they're the CEO or the MD of one of the sponsors come up and talk on us, and even though there's a kind of a sales plug on there, I think I valued the networking from it. I valued looking at some of the other accounting tech, and also then listening to some of these guys in the space that are really good.
For me, it's just about knowing what's out there from a systems/tech point of view and where companies are at their journey, and then understanding if there's any gaps that you have, and how do other people approach that challenge. So when you go chat to people, I found there's very bespoke software to do very bespoke things. I was chatting to you about it. This, an approval software simply does approvals, just tracks the approvals. I was like, surely this is built into the main system, and they're like, oh no, the current system doesn't actually do it that well, so we just implement. I was like, unbelievable. So everyone's thinking of something, right? So it's I suppose it just comes down to what you're after and then carrying that forward. So but yeah, I found it good. Get some socks.
So I guess for the viewers out there, so if they want to come next year, how do you find it, and how do they sort of get involved next time? And is this also only based in Australia, or
so they go to every city. So it's run by the CFO magazine.
Yeah, correct.
And that's Australian based?
Yeah, it's Australian based. And yeah, they run it in every city. I think they chuck it out on LinkedIn once every year when they're... I think that's the other thing. Follow as many accounting influencers, so to speak. And there's always these events that come up. Or even just hearing about... Because I follow some now that travel, literally their job is to find out the latest accounting tech and processes, travel around the world, go to Singapore, Hong Kong, London, and you just hear what they're doing and the stuff that they're seeing. And then it opens your mind up to it as well. And then you see the events that come up in your city. So it's probably the best way, but you have to have a business and a leader that's supportive of that too. Because if you want to avoid taking an annual leave day, you want to be able to prove that this is for not just your growth, but for the benefit of the business long term. So yeah.
Very good.
I'll join you guys next year.
See you next year.
Welcome.
Good wrap up of the CFO Symposium. Welcome back, Hubert. Guys, if you like this episode, subscribe. A lot of common courtesy was shown at the CFO Symposium when there was a coffee line. No one was rushing and jumping in front of each other. There was common courtesy to let the fellow accountant go in front of you if they were there first, just like there is common courtesy to like and subscribe this video if you found value. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Take care.
See ya.